let's see connection pool discussion. Okay, at the rate value we will see uh, maybe in next session. So we'll discuss about connection pooling. So let us understand the importance of connection pool first. So the first step, we know how to open a connection from database. Okay, so we load a driver, then once after driver loading we get the connection and we execute statement, and finally we need to close connection. Many will miss this step, so a lot of leakages used to happen there. Excuse me. So when you see this connection step, right, this is very costliest one from the application point of view. Opening connection and closing connection is a costly job. Okay, so it's a costly job because during open connection, right, during open connection, what it need to do, it need to carry your username password to the given database URL. Whatever database URL given, it should go to the particular database, and it will ask database to open sockets. So database need to open socket, or you can say session. It need to open a session for the user. So you are the user, so for your request it need to open one socket and session from the database side. So if you write code for your enterprise applications, if you write a code where every time if we are opening connection for every user request and if you are closing that connection, it will be costlier job and costliest mistake for your application. Instead of executing your application users request, let's say from the statistics, right, observed by many people, what they are telling is, if you do direct connection, if you do direct connection, right, with the connection pool connections, connection directly with the connection pool, when a developer works with the connection and with connection pool, the difference you can see when 100 users request to your application, 100 users request to your application, when 100 users count is 100 users, here direct connection will respond. Let's say your database is having 100 connections. If your database is having 100 connections, so these users here maybe within 600 milliseconds they can execute their job in connection pool also around the same time when the count is 100 users, because your database is having maximum 100 connections same time or little bit here and there. Now this count increases when it is 1000, when it is 1000 here, when it is 1000 here, 1000 users count. Now you'll see lot of difference here. So when direct connection is using, it may take up to, instead of milliseconds, it may go to up to seconds, like 200 seconds or somewhere. Still it will continue, still it will continue in milliseconds only. So maybe 650 milliseconds. When this count increases to 10,000, rough calculation I'm saying, okay, Yeah, I'll tell you. Okay. Connection means opening direct connection, the traditional way which you do, right? Driver manager dot get connection. So here you will be using driver manager dot get connection code. So using driver manager dot get JDB channel. If you use driver manager dot get connection traditional approach to get the connection. Here connection pool means we will get it from data source dot get connection. So when you use data source to get the connections, when you use data source to get the connections, which means it's a connection pool concept. You are using data source connection pool. If you use direct driver manager dot get connection, you will be using direct connections. Yeah. So this is the time how much it will take. Let's say 100 users if they hit your application, how much time it will take to process. A rough example giving here. If 100 users hit your application, each, consider for each user or for all users. For all users. For 100 users, I'm thinking that it will take 600 milliseconds, both cases, if my database is having 100 connections. Okay, for connection pool and connection also, it will show the same behavior. But when the count is increasing, when your application users become 1000 users or 10,000 users or 1 lakh users, then here it will take a lot of time. Like here, it may take 500 seconds of time. Here again, it will take maybe milliseconds only. When it increases to 30,000, it may go to up to 60,000 seconds. Here still it will continue with 700 seconds or 700 milliseconds. Lot of performance difference you can see. Lot of performance difference you can see when you go with connection, right? It will create unnecessary exceptions, unnecessary waitings, not even waitings, exceptions. When there is no connection available, right? In simple words, I have a database here. A application is designed without connection pool if you consider, and a application designed with connection pool. So here I have an application. Consider IRCTC old application. And the new application. Indian Railway application. Okay. If it was implemented using direct connection approach. Okay. If it was implemented by using direct connection approach, only direct connection I am using here, using driver manager. Here I am using data source connection pool concept. Connection pool concept I am using here. So what difference you can see between both applications is, let's say during morning for Tatkal, here many people wake up to book the ticket. Let's say 1000 users starting booking. 1000 users immediately logged in at 7:30 a.m. Okay, 1000 users logged in at 7:30 a.m. to this application, and they are continuously hitting this application for doing Tatkal booking. And my database maximum connections capability is 100 only, if you believe. Okay, 100 sessions only, 100 maximum connections only my database can able to provide. Here also 100 maximum connections only my database can provide. Consider you are using RQL or MySQL. 100 maximum connections only if it can able to provide you. When you are using direct connections approach, right, out of this 1000 users, when they hit this application, right, for first 100 users they can able to acquire connection from database. So for first 100 users application will work properly. 100 users will get the connection properly. For them it will try to do the CRUD operations. Then immediately the remaining 900 users also hitting, right? The first 100 users will get connection. The remaining 900 users will get exception. They will get exception saying that no connection is available. Unnecessary exception, you know, you can see maybe in UI they might avoid by using some exception handling, but in the background your application will, create this noise. It will say database is not having more connections. Already maximum connections were utilized. Something like that exceptions you will see here in your application. When you are using direct connections, right? When you are using direct connections, it will take lot of time to get connection from database to application. To open connection itself, it will take lot of time. To get the connection from database to execute CRUD operations anyway, based on your query, it will take time. If it is a simple query, immediately it may give result. If it is a complex joins queries, it may take little bit time. To open connection itself, let's say if it is taking 2 seconds of time or 1 second of time for each user, for first 100 users it will take, for each 1 second it will take, and it will open connection and give it to them. For the remaining 900 users, it will say exception. It will give exceptions because to complete the operation of this user, he is taking, let's say, 1 minute or 2 minutes. These 100 users are taking 1 minute or 2 minutes to fulfill or to complete his operation. So till that 1 minute or 2 minutes, these people will continuously see the exceptions. Once this user done with his job, when he close the connection, right, then that connection will be returned back to database. Whatever connection he opened, that connection again it will return back to database. Then whoever comes again out of this 900 users first, right, whoever comes in, for them it will give new connections if connections are available with the database. Let's say out of this 100 users, 10 users done with their operations, so 10 connections will be returned back. So then out of this 900 users, 10 users can hit it. So this is not a viable solution. This is not a working solution in real time. If you use direct connections, this will not work. And time also, right, it used to take lot of time. At least to complete this 1000 users request, a day time it will take, with exceptions, issues, browsing issues. People will continuously will log in and finally they do their job, but they will take lot of time to spend. They will take lot of time with application to book the tickets. Whereas if you go with connection pool will do what? At a time, it will bring all that 100 connections from database to application. 100 connections, it will take it into application memory in a hash table or hash map. In your application memory, it will put all the connections. At a time, it will bring all the connections into your connection pool. All 100 connections, it will book here during your application loading itself. Not even at the time of application user request. During your application startup itself, it will bring all the connections from database and it will put here. During application startup only. On application startup only, all these connections will be created here. During application start. So during your application startup itself, it will bring all the connections. And when you shut down, then only it will return your connections. So application may start today and it may not shut down, maybe for months, until unless you don't have any production related changes. So during shutdown, it will return connections back. During application startup, it will bring all the connections to your connection pool, and when you shut down, then it will return back to database. Till then, it will keep all the connections with connection pool only. Using direct connection or using connection from connection pool, architecture wise or from the database point of view, it is not too different. Any user can use the same connection again and again. The behavior is same. So here for this application now, the same number of users request here. The users are calling at 7:30 a.m. when these people started calling this application 1,000 users or lakhs of users. When they hit this application, first it will do what? For first 100 users, it will give the connections from connection pool immediately. It won't take 2 minutes, 3 minutes time to get the connection. Already connections are available in Java within fraction of milliseconds. Millisecond, again a fraction of second in the millisecond, right? It will take time to give the connection for first 100 users. As soon as these 100 users finish with their job, immediately that connection again place it back it into pool. Maybe if his CRUD operation is taking some 10 milliseconds time, within that 10 milliseconds his CRUD operation executed, then connection will be freed and it will placed back into the pool. Immediately out of 900, right, the other users will immediately get this connection. Whichever connections are freed and stored into the connection pool, right, they will immediately get these connections. And if connection is not available for next 1 millisecond or 10 milliseconds, or next 1 second or 2 seconds, if connections are not available also, it will keep this 900 users in queue. Maybe browser continuously it will rotate for next 1 second or 2 seconds. Application will not throw any errors, as application knows that connections are really busy. It will hold this users. Connection pool will hold this user connection request in a queue. Immediately as soon as other users done with their connections, right, they will place it back into the connection pool. That same connections it will serve it back. So from the performance side here, if it is taking to open and close connection itself, if it is taking 2 seconds of time, and for doing simple CRUD operation if it is saying 10 milliseconds of time, 1 second to open and 1 second to close, and 10 milliseconds maybe for your CRUD operation it might take. So for every user it will take 1 second to open connection and 1 second to close connection, and 10 milliseconds to CRUD operation. So 10 millisecond in the sense 10 into 100 is a 1 second, right? 1000 milliseconds is a second. So 10 milliseconds in the sense within a second it can able to execute 100 database CRUD operations. 100 database CRUD operations within a second. So within a second 100 database operations able to execute if it is a connection pool. But here within 2 seconds 2 seconds 10 milliseconds also it is not able to execute one CRUD operation, because it is taking lot of time to open connection and to close the connection. Whereas in connection pool concept it will not take much time, because connections are available in Java only. Within your Java in-memory heap only, it will keep all your connection pools, so that immediately when user hits the application for a CRUD operation, it will pick connection from connection pool and it will execute. So for all these 1,000 users, it will take maybe roughly 10 seconds. It all depends on your database connections. If your database connections count is more than 100,000, so maybe they seamlessly they will execute their operations. Yeah, yeah, yes. Every database for every user, hmm, every database for every user, it will give some sessions. It will give some specific sessions. Let's say with username password only you will hit database, right? With the given username password to the database, admin manager or system manager, something we hit with our username password. For your user, DB admin will provide some maximum number of sessions. That is what connections is. That is what connection, or that is what session. In database language, we call it as session. Connection. Yeah. For application, user in the sense username password. Database username password is a schema, right? It's a schema we call. So for that schema, you can have again multiple users also in database language, right? You can have multiple username passwords, right? For the same schema, multiple people may be accessing, multiple applications may access it. So let's say you have username password for your schema. For that username and password, it will give this many connections. Let's say if you go to the movie, movie, and if you try to book the tickets, how many tickets they will give you? Maximum 6 tickets or 10 tickets. It depends. You in book my show, you may book 10 tickets or five maximum tickets for each person. Similar way, for each database username and password, there will be you know a special number of or a specific number of connections here in the database connection. Yeah. So here, that many for your user 100 connections are available. That 100 connections you can able to consume. After this 100 connections, if connections are not available, database will say no more connections with me. No, forget about this user. Forget about this user, end user. Okay. So he is a end user. Okay. Leave him. I'm talking about the username password which you have. You have your specific username password for the database, right? So with this username password, tell me how many maximum connections you can get. That count, do you know? No, you can get, there will be maximum number of connections that you can get for each user, right? You can get maybe in database they configure like 10 connections or 100 connections or 500 connections. Connections limit they will provide for this username password. That many connections are ready for you, but at a time using driver manager dot get connection, you are getting one connection only. That is the problem. Database is okay to give you 100 connections at a time, but you are not taking them. You are taking only one connection at a time, right? So database is saying take 100 connections if you want. You have 100 connections capability, take 100 connections and keep it with you. Instead, you every time asking me give one connection, take connection back, give connection again, take connection back. Instead, you doing that, take all the connections. For your username password, there are 100 connections available. Take all that 100 connections and keep it with you. Once your application shut down, return it back. Yeah, as I have that capability, I'm getting all the connections. I'm checking how many connections my database can able to give, getting all the connections and keeping it into connection pool. So now onwards, hmm, yeah, this connection pool is having n number of connections here, thousands of connect or hundred of connections I have here. Now I can use these connections for my user operations, end user operations. When your end user hits, right, when your end user hits my application, for him there is a save operation or update operation or delete operation. When a first user hits, I will consume this connection. I will pick one connection from here, from this database. I'll pick this connection. I will pick up this connection and I can start using it. Using this connection, I can execute statement or create prepared statement or execute or callable statements. Any statement I can execute here. After statement, I will call connection dot close method here also. When I do connection dot close method, this connection again will go back to connection pool only. It will not return to database. So again, it will place it into connection pool so other people can able to use it. So like how office put cars in a pool, right? Car pool. If you go to, if you are using a cab, they will put many cabs in the carpool. So you can go and pick your cab and you can use this cab. So once it drop you at home, again it will come back to office to pick other people, right? Same car. So we are pooling it like exactly. All your connections will reside here only. Earlier we used to bring that connection from database. As we thought that is a costlier job, we brought all the connections to Java only. Here only we are fetching and using it. And when you do close again, that will place it back into the pool only. That is what the pool concept. You can use if you want single connection or 10 connections, use it for your purpose. You are at a time for your request. If you are doing one save operation, one update operation, one delete operation, how many sessions you may require? 3 sessions, 3 connections. So use 3 connections, one after another, right? You will be executing a save operation. Once your save operation is done, your connection again it will place it back into the pool. For update operation, whenever you ask, again it will give new connection. Once done with your operation, again it will place back it into pool. So always connections will be resides into the pool only. As soon as you utilize and you are done with your operation, you need to place it back into the pool. So others can able to utilize it. And now onwards, it is not a costlier job. If you are not directly fetching from database, fetching from connection pool is a easy job because it is Java in memory only. In your Java in memory only, it will keep this object. So getting object from in memory is roughly not even 1 millisecond. Within fraction of seconds, you can able to get this object and you can able to consume it. The only time it will take is to send your query CRUD operation methods to database only. It will take time. So it's all depends on how good you implemented your queries. To execute your CRUD operations only, whatever specific time it is required, that time only it will take. Earlier, unnecessarily, it was taking time to open connection and to close the connection. Now, only for my CRUD operation only, I'll be taking the time. As soon as you're done with your CRUD operation, again connection will be placed back into pool only. So you will see lot of performance improvement here when you go with this. Let me give a simple example with JDBC. I'm writing a simple class here just to see how many connections I can get. Main method try catch dot print exception. Just I'll put a for loop for int I equal to 0, I less than like up to 1000 connections I want to open, and I plus plus. Without connection pool, I'm writing it. Means for loop will not stop execution, right? It will execute, within fraction of seconds. Then immediately your code also try to execute within inside the for loop. So what code I'll write here is to open connection. I'll write code here oracle dot jdbc dot oracle driver, then get the connection here. Connection con equal to driver manager dot get connection jdbc colon oracle in colon localhost 152.1. Exit. System.out.println connection. I'm not closing connection. See, I'm just opening connection and not closing it. Let's see how many connections it can give you. Hmm. So maybe hardly 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. 19 connections only given to me. Only 19 connections only given to me. What about the remaining statements? Terminated your code. After 90 loops, your code is terminated. Actually, 1,000 times this loop should have iterated, but it iterated for 19 times only. So meanwhile, that connections might not return back, or it may return. Okay, hopefully it returned. 18 connections opened, and still it is waiting. Your code also not terminated. Your para also not executed. Something is happening, right? So it doesn't have any clue whether you are opening connection or you are closing connection. After 18 connections, you don't have connections from the database. Okay, so I did mistake here. Connections not properly closed. Okay, let me close it. Connection not closed. And will it execute as expected 1,000 times? See, yet your connections not returned properly to the database. Database not aware of that you shut down your Java application. You need to take connections back. Earlier in two loops, we didn't close the connections properly, right? Your connections are blocked from database. So that is the mistake maximum. Hmm. So how many username passwords will be given to your application? Only one, right? Every application will have only one connection user only. We using that one user, whatever maximum connections we have in database, that maximum connections we will get. So 19 connections only. After that, what about the users? Only for 19 users my application capable. See, even if I closed it also, immediately close operations, not taken place. 18 opened. See again, it is refusing. Arcly is refusing your connections. So how can you improve it? Even if you open direct connection and if you close it also, database is not as fast as your Java application. This for loop will execute in fraction of seconds, but not this code. Opening connection, closing connection will not take in place, you know, as fast as like your Java application. It will take some time. So to improve it, right? To improve it, instead you do go with this approach, right? If you can create a connection pool here, let me create connection pool. So this is one loop, right? Let me create another main method. I'll comment this. As I have 18 connections only, how better I can utilize means with the connection pool you can utilize it. There are many connection pools implemented by many partners like Apache given one implementation, Hikari connection pool we have that we use in Spring Boot in real time, and we have combo pooled data source. There are many data sources, out of which basic data source is one, which is from Tomcat, Apache Tomcat. Given this implementation, it is an open source one. Just you can use dbcp jar file from your Apache Tomcat. So this is one connection pool class which is implemented from the data source class. So who given instructions to implement this connection pool? Java API only given. Like who given implementations to the connection? Database vendors given, but interface given by Java. Similarly, Java people given data source as an interface. For this interface, many implementations given by many partners. One of which is given by Tomcat. Tomcat given one implementation class for the data source. This is a class given by Apache, and this is the interface given by Sun Microsystems only. So the rules given by Sun and everybody implemented it. So BDS dot set a driver class name. So instead you loading it via class dot for name, give it to this driver. BDS dot set URL. Just give this URL there. BDS dot set username. And password. BDS dot set password. And maximum how many connections you wanted to put it into pool. 19 connections available, right? 19 or 18? 18. So set that 18 limit here. At a time I am saying get 18 connections from database. Set maximum connections. 18. Get 18 connections. And if 18 users are continuously using, for other users it should not throw exception like this. Earlier it was throwing, right, connection refused, errors. That errors, if you don't want to show, you can set max waiting time also. Max waiting time. So user will wait until then. Let's say 500 milliseconds. I mean 5000 milliseconds means 5 seconds. Maximum 2 seconds is enough. So till then user also will wait. User request also will be wait in queue without any errors. Now instead of having this logic here to open connection, now earlier you are opening connection using driver manager, right? Now instead of driver manager, use your connection pool to get the connection. Your connection pool dot get connection. It will give you connection for you because already it is prepared. From there I am getting connection and I am closing this connection immediately. Let me execute this loop also. How many times? 1000 times this loop is executed. And I'm opening connection and I'm closing connection. Closing connection means you are not giving connection back to database. You are giving connection back to connection pool only. When you call connection dot close, which is got from basic data source, right? From connection pool, it will be returned back as usual to your data source. See, within fraction of seconds, or null you got everywhere null, right? So Oracle driver, very basic on Oracle column, the column at the local host is correct. System admin. Ah, yeah, nice, great, great. Yeah, so I properly not. Even after your data source operations completed, right? You need to close it at the end of the application shutdown, right? You need to close your connection pool also. Connection pools also created. Connection pools also should destroy. Okay. Here connection pool during application startup opening, right? During shutdown, you should close it using connection pool dot close. Okay. Now let's see 1000 operations. See, within fraction of seconds, it created. Not much time taken. 1000 connections opened without any error. Let me increase it to 10,000 or 1 lakh. See, not even hardly 2 or 3 seconds for 1 lakh connections. If it was a old approach, hardly 18 connections it can provide. So within 2 3 seconds only it is able to provide you lakhs of connections. So then imagine the application performance. You don't see any delays when you go with connection pool. Your users count can be 1 lakh or 10 lakhs or 1 crore or 10 crores or 100 crores. It doesn't care. Whatever connections available in the pool, that connections only it will utilize. So it gives lot of performance. Okay, you got it right how it is working from this example itself. If it is a direct connection, a lot of nonsense it is doing it here with exceptions and all. When I go with connection pool, smoothly it is giving any number of connections. Okay, so if you are you know in real time, we never touch this. By default, Spring Boot will create connection pools. In case if there is any specific requirement to you to create a connection pool, remember that connection pool will work in such a way. You need to keep all the connections into pool, and you can get the connection from pool and you can utilize it. Then you close it proper, your connection. So closing connection means returning it back to pool, and during your application shutdown, close this connection pool. Okay, yeah. So again, we will see these concepts in Spring Boot also. Nothing to worry. For today, that's all I want to show you.